Oh, and you just barely made it. Just barely made it back. Welcome, everyone. Good evening. It's actually a beautiful Saturday today. At least here in Michigan. Probably not in Vegas where it's triple digits, but it was really nice today. So I'm happy. Got to build a chicken coop. So it's been a good day. Thank you for joining us tonight for another edition of Spilling Ink. Do we still say the live thing? I mean, I'm still
Yeah.
nobody live. Okay, live.
It's force
Spilling
of
Ink
habit.
live.
Live.
Yes,
It's Saturday
yes.
night. No.
And before we get too far, because you know how I like to forget this, we got to give a big shout out to our sponsor, Creative Edge Publicity. Creative Edge, your brand, your future. They are advocates of collaboration and believers in partnerships in the ever-changing literary industry. So we are very appreciative to Creative Edge for making it possible for us to have this wonderful video platform as well as the audio podcast. So thank you so much for your sponsorship. And we have new guests today, and I am so excited. This is both halves of the author team, O.E. Tearmann. Would you guys want to introduce yourselves?
You go first.
Okay. Hey, I'm Olivia Wiley. I'm one half of O.E. Tearmann. I am a trained horticulturist, jack of all trades, master of none.
I'm Nonier Amicidia. I'm the other half. I go by they, them pronouns, and I write fantasy and science fiction, and I'm the one reining in Olivia's crazy science ideas into something that makes sense with you on the page.
But science!
So you're the voice of reason. Okay, I like it.
I'm the voice of let's torture our characters. I don't care if the science makes sense. And then she wants the science to make sense. So she'll come in and be like, rah, this doesn't make sense. I have to redo everything.
That's a good balance, though. You have to have the balance.
Exactly. For those of you who have read the series, Nonier is the voice that created Aiden, who is our sweet, wonderful, way too self-critical commander of a rebel base in the year 2155. He is a darling cinnamon roll, and he gets this from his parents.
Our kid puppy trans guy. That's not me at all. What are you talking
about? Well, our other two hosts are also our show. Our show, is that even a word? I've been drinking all right today. Okay.
Okay. Did you get more, Carmel?
I didn't. I'm drinking up anything else I can find in the house right now.
Okay.
Nothing counting quarantine.
Don't go for the rubbing alcohol.
Katie and Jane are also a writing team together, and they've how many guys have you guys put out already? Three already. Well,
yep.
That's pretty
I feel like
fun.
we're in a race now.
So now, which one of you has to rein the other one in, Katie and Jane? Either one of you?
I think it's really equal. Like, yeah, we both are like, that's a great, crazy idea. Let's go with it.
We just, we make a really good team. We, work off each other and kind of give free rein on the direction to go in.
It helps though when you know the person, you've known them for a long time, you know their style, they know your style, because it really is, it's got to be a partnership. You both have to come together and make the story work.
Yes,
agreed. And the other thing is making those boundaries and making those decisions about this is a good time for us to work together. This is not, and being open with each other about those kinds of things. When you can work that out in a partnership, it is a beautiful thing. And when it doesn't work.
Have there been times like that?
Oh yeah. It took us a while because when we get stressed, we do completely opposite things.
Well, so like what? Give us an example.
Yeah, Olivia likes to throw herself completely into projects and be super overproductive and do all the things. And when I get too stressed, I have to withdraw, give myself time to rest and not do anything. And so, especially early on when we were working together, there were times where I was just going through a lot of stuff, and Liv would come to me after I got home at work and be like, hey, so I got this brand new idea and I want to throw all these things at you. And I'm just like, oh my God, no, I need to decompress.
So I had to learn to say, hey, you got the bandwidth for this today. Do you have spoons for this today? Before I went off on the great idea, because we do the exact opposite. And in that way, we both complement each other and drive each other crazy. Because when I can't handle reality, I dive into fictional worlds. I go off and write or create as a way to not look at life.
Yeah.
And so whenever I'm going through something, you can tell because I'm like, I have a project.
He goes and creates, and I go and consume.
Yes. Well, and it's funny is I have a little bit of both of you going on when I get really excited about a project. Like I'm working on a super secret film project right now. That's actually a lot of fun. But I'm in excitement mode. But excitement mode quickly turns to stress mode.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'm emailing people, and when these people don't write me back within, 24 hours, all of a sudden I'm in panic mode. And then I'm like, all right, I'm just going to go eat every single thing in the pantry and go to sleep and cry. And that's just the cycle I live in at this point.
Oh, that's hard.
Very.
I tend to be, well, partly this is biology and partly it's personality. I tend to live in my head and I live creatively, but that means my body sometimes has to say, what the hell are you doing? And so I will sometimes run for 2 or 3 weeks on projects at a time and forget to eat on a regular basis during that time. And then I'll just have one day where I crash and I'm exhausted. I can't move. I'm tired as anything. Not I can't move, but I don't want to. And that's about the time that I realize I've been overdoing it again. Crap.
Which is why when we're not in a pandemic, we try to get together like every other week so I can look at her and be like, have you eaten?
Yes, but also so we can toss ideas back and forth in a preset time where we're together and we're feeling, playful and feel like hanging out. And it's not me going, hey, thing, I want to talk to you about thing. I don't bother them because I know that's for this time period. And that worked a lot better. So it's a lot of learning each other's needs and each other's boundaries. And sometimes just being really honest, like these days, it used to be because I come from, I love this new term that I've heard, guess culture. In my family, you don't ask questions straight out. You try to respect others by figuring it out yourself, which leads to some real passive aggressive bullshit. I'm just
Interesting.
But I would try to be like, well, what about this? And what about this? And now I just say, I'm feeling really creative. I want to work on something. Do you have the spoons? And just be open about it. And once I learned openness
recently.
Yes, I'm getting better at it. I'm getting better, but it's a slow process.
Well, and I think that asking people that, do you have the spoons for it? And a lot of people know what that means. Not everyone, but I think that is so conscientious because, like I might come home from work and my wife's business is completely on hold because of pandemic, and so she hasn't talked to anybody all day except for the kids, and she just wants to throw all this at me, and it's like, okay, well, I just put down 2 animals in the last 60 minutes. I have got nothing, I'm nothing, but unless you communicate that, they don't know, and then it leads to misunderstandings or frustration. So yeah, I think that's fantastic that you have that open channel of communication that you could say, I can't quite do this today. Let's pick it up tomorrow.
For people who don't understand the whole spoon thing, I mean, most people do, but for people that don't, especially our audience, if there's somebody out here who doesn't, can we explain that briefly to them?
Okay.
Nonir, will you?
Sure. So basically,
your eyes were like,
yeah. I'm good at doing this at conventions, like on the spot. Anyway, spoon theory, I forget exactly when it started to show up, but get to that question in a minute. Basically means how much energy you have. It was developed to help with people with disabilities and chronic illnesses, and basically say, okay, everyone gets 12 spoons a day, and that represents your energy for any given day. And that's it. You only get 12 spoons. And some activities take 1 spoon or this amount of energy, and some activities take this amount of energy. So if that makes sense. Sorry,
Yeah.
that was
Well,
not
yeah, and so if
spell
you
slots, yes.
if you have your spell slots, I love that.
I
That's
love
great,
it.
Bex. I love it.
Battery power, HP.
Yes.
They're
I'm old school, so I tend to talk in bandwidth. I'm like, do you have the bandwidth for this?
Yeah.
That's because I'm a geek.
I would have understood that better than spoons.
Well, yeah, and it's just, and it's something I only learned a few years ago, but really it's, and if you're having a really bad day, something like, putting your clothes on in the morning, that might take a spoon or two just for you to be able to do that. And that's okay, because we all feel things differently, but yeah,
Right.
it's a really interesting theory. And when I first read it, I was like, oh my God, that's amazing. And funny story that's not actually humorous at all. It was
Funny story.
I think it was 2 years ago, in the summer in June, the end of June, is when oh no, my headphones! Oh God! Oh my God!
Cat interference.
Oh,
You're irritated.
I tried to do the over-ear headphones, and I just did not like the way they felt. But oh man, she loves to grab those suckers. But I had just recently. I'll talk to you. I'll talk to you later, Jules. I had just recently learned about spoon theory, and then a friend who's not even a close friend online, posted about it, something about spoons, and I sent her a message, and I said, what happens when you're completely out of spoons and you're
You
not
start
going to keep going? And that was a really bad time for me, and I ended up having to go to the hospital because there was just bad stuff that went down. But it was at that point. But it was also amazing because immediately, even though she doesn't know me well and she doesn't know my wife at all, she somehow tracked down and ended up calling her and saying, "Hey, we've got a problem here, and we need to talk about this." And things got resolved that way. But yeah, that's kind of my spoon theory story, is that you can run out of spoons, and at that point it sucks, and you've got to have somebody to talk to.
But it's a really good, easy way to discuss things that are hard to talk about.
Agreed. We all have our own tells for when we've run out of spoons. And for me, my tell is I come home, I knock over a glass, it breaks, I start bursting into tears and basically saying I mess everything up. And that's when my husband, who's trained in neurobiology, he's like, you have no bandwidth right now. Why don't I cook? You sit down. And because he knows that once I do that, I'm done. Once I've gone to that place, I'm done and I need to go sit down. But everybody has their own tells. Some people lose their temper because they don't have any energy left to keep the control. Yep. I lose my confidence. I mess everything up. That kid, I become that little 13-year-old who thinks everything's going wrong when I'm stressed beyond belief. And that's, it's really powerful to realize that and become self-aware in that. And it's part of what we work into our writing is our characters becoming self-aware and being able to cope with, oh, I'm doing that. And in fact, we have one character who's outwardly very, very perfected, but he tends to lose his temper when he's stressed. We just got a comment that I really love. I measure life in teacups. My husband knows to give me a hug if I have more than 7 cups of tea a day. Jenna, I am right there with you. If my husband sees me have 3 pots of tea, he's like, did you get a call from your mom? And my mom is someone I love dearly, but a constant source of stress in my life. And so if he sees me suck down 3 pots of tea, he's like, feeling okay. So I sympathize deeply with that. But there was a question a little earlier about what we did for a living. Do we want to move on to that? Because I want to answer it before I forget.
Because I have a freebie about
Yes.
measuring your HP for the day.
Yes.
Let's do it.
I love it.
Yeah.
So my actual job is I do social media for a cancer awareness campaign called Catch It in Time. The job I actually love and we'll talk about more is have my own business called Wandering Jotun Crafts. That is art and spiritual services for the outcasts. It's all things designed to uplift and support marginalized communities.
Love it.
It's a little bit on hold right now because a lot of it's through conventions, and that's not really a thing right now.
Yeah.
Piggybacking off of that, you need to get her brain beasties deck. Sorry about that, Nonir. You need to get their brain beasties deck because their brain beasties deck is awesome.
It's an oracle deck where half of it is things that people tend to struggle with mentally, like self-depreciation and being hangry, things of that nature, and the other half is things to help you cope with that. I would say yes, go buy it, but I only have one copy on me, and
oh shit! Sorry.
Go get them.
Can we see it? I mean, is it right there?
It's somewhere. I'm sorry.
You just teased us with something awesome.
Olivia, what do you do during the day?
So during the day, I own a small residential landscaping company.
Ah.
So I, a few years ago, I'm trained in horticulture. I have my degree in horticulture, and I worked for several different companies, and things went a little crazy. Things went sideways, and I said, "Why am I working for a jerk? I got the skills to do this on my own." And so I bought a used truck and I started working with clients. And I love it because I'm very strict about, I don't work weekends, I don't move snow, I live my life, and I do good work. And I do not half-ass a job in order to get to another client's house. If I don't get there that day, I move the schedule. Any client who can't handle me saying, "Hey, got a little bit behind, I'll see you on Tuesday," I drop. And that sounds callous from the outside, but I did this specifically because I got sick of working for contractor companies that would say, "No, just half-ass the job. You've got to get over here by 2:00. Like, no, I do the job right.
Well, and I think if I remember correctly, it all started with a shield, a tumbleweed, and a musician, right?
That was how I met my husband.
I can't remember exactly.
Yes.
Those words.
Well, yes. The reason that came up is because I hate tumbleweeds, and I found out they're invasive, so I have every right to hate them. So yeah, they're actually from Mongolia. They're from the steppes of Russia originally. So now I don't feel bad about hating them whatsoever. So I am Irish Menominee, and the family joke is that I got Irish skin and Menominee hips. And so I burn under the sun.
Mean?
The Menominee are a people of the upper Northwest, the Wisconsin forests, and they tend to come along more rounded contours.
Like me.
And, yeah. And
like
so, I mean, where your hip bones are tells you exactly how much weight you actually should lose. And when you can feel your hip bones, this is what I tell my younger cousins. If you can feel your hip bones and there's not a lot of fat on them, then that's the shape of your hips. You can't lose weight and go down.
I don't like this conversation.
Your hips are right here.
I don't like this conversation at all.
It's really good to tell the 15-year-olds who are talking about trying to lose weight, because I'm telling them, feel for your hip bones. If your hip bones are there, you need to stop trying to lose weight because your bones are there.
Unless you have the what we call it, the Provo butt. That's my family side of the family.
Yeah.
All in the back.
And the reason I brought it up is because I burn under this Colorado sun. I was born to be under the cover. I burn like anything, and I do not tan. And so I wear a hat that comes out to here and a man's button-down shirt over a tank top rolled up so that I have sleeves. thin sleeves, and it also saves you when you're cutting, say, manzanita, pyracantha roses.
Yeah.
And then I wear men's jeans because women's jeans are made out of tissue paper, and I wear boots. And pretty much I am pandemic safe. I'm covered head to toe. And then I just take the bandana that I usually use for, put it around my nose and mouth. Because I always wear a bandana partly to protect my throat.
Like this area that maybe gets.
Yeah, sunglasses. But yeah, I'm pretty much completely safe. But I love my work. It feeds a lot. Oh, sorry, Nonier, go ahead.
I was going to joke about we think that you're that pale because of the lighting in your room. You're actually that pale.
I'm actually, I am actually this pale. So last funny joke on my background, because I want to move on the conversation. I don't want to monopolize, but my Menominee name is Medasque, which is the human, it means of the otter or otter child. But the word for mushroom is Metasque. So guess what I was called all through childhood. To this day, when I go home, people are like, mushroom, we love you. We haven't seen you forever. I'm like, I love you too. So yeah, my family looks like a checkerboard. Everyone, or like a color chart where everybody's all across the spectrum. And so I wanted to bring that up because a lot of the work about horticulture ends up feeding into the writing, designing what Colorado would look like, and also how would you grow all this food in a climate where it normally hits 114 degrees on a bad day, it's 120.
Mm-hmm.
It's been very fun to design some of that. And yeah, and it also feeds into thinking about adaptation. Like when you look like me and you live in Colorado and you like being outside, you learn a lot of adaptation, and that has fed right into how we dress our characters, because they live in the Colorado Badlands in the year 2155. Mm-hmm. And they have a poncho, and their normal outdoor gear is wide brim hat, poncho, heavy stuff underneath, and a vest with coolant in it, or a jacket with coolant in it to keep their body temperature from spiking to the point where you pass out. Mm-hmm. Yay! I'm actually river otter, but I always love all of them.
Oh yeah, I was going to share my screen and show you pictures.
Yay!
Sorry, I got distracted by like family stuff.
That's okay.
I always like that saying that we're taught as writers is write what you know, but I've always thought of it as adapt what you know to what you're writing. And I like the way that you're talking about the things that you know and figuring out how it will apply to your story.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's totally exactly what happens. And we write a unit in a resistance force, but they're basically a found family. So that's also write what we know, because I come from this huge intergenerational family with 27 first cousins and all these aunts and uncles. Yay!
I'm so sorry.
Glad you're going to show it. And
we have really trippy.
And we have this wonderful, we're also writing what Nonier knows with a lot of details about mental health.
Mental health and the queer community are kind of my wheelhouses for this series.
Yeah, well, I should actually show the books. So,
well, I was going to say, let me make you bigger a minute here. I was going to say, I would actually stop it, Katie. I would actually like it if you guys could tell us about these books.
Yeah.
Yes. Show us the cover.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So this is book 1, The Hands Were Given. And you're gonna see a lot of poker terminology because the team in the books are the wild cards. And they got that name originally because they weren't sure if they were going to work out as a unit, the leadership. So they said, all right, you're the wild cards. We're not sure if you'll work. But they love it and they stick with it. So this is book 2 in the series. It's called Call the Bluff. And the next one is book 3, Raise the Stakes. And the 4th one comes out on May 16th, and it's going to be called Aces and Eights.
Those covers are fantastic.
Thank you. Amphibian Press does them, and they do an amazing job on them. And we used to have a different cover artist, but I love these so much. They make me very, very happy.
I love our little press. Thank you, Amphibian. You are the best.
Amphibian Press. Why do I know that name? Why do I know that name?
V.S. Holmes?
Oh, that's VS.
Yeah.
Yes. Duh. Okay. Sorry. I was like,
I
wait a
wasn't
second.
sure if you were joking because I know
No.
you guys know each other.
He's been drinking today.
I have been drinking.
So you were asking about the series. Nonier, do
Yes.
you want to lead off or do you want me to?
Your pitch is so much better than mine.
No, near. Come on. I want to hear yours because I've already heard Olivia's.
Yeah, you made me do it the last time.
I know, but your pitch is so much better. Okay, so basically, it's what we call a hopeful queer cyberpunk story, and it's set, like Liv said, 2155, and it follows a group of rebels called the Wildcards who are part of a larger force attempting to bring democracy back to an America that has been overtaken by 7 giant corporations who are now leading it. Basically, the backstory of that is the government was shut down for 11 months.
There was an 11-month government shutdown.
Wait a
And
second.
during that time,
What's
the
happening here?
the corporation stepped in and they were like, hey, pay your taxes to us. And we'll
Is
take
one of
care
them
it."
Amazon?
Well, Zoncom is one of them. And there's nothing as delicious. Go ahead.
We meant this to be a warning, not a premonition. Because we started writing this long before any of this happened, and here we are. So, whoops!
Yeah,
All dystopian has been moved to current events, just so you know.
yeah, we've noticed. And in fact, we've gotten some commentary about quit writing things. You're giving them ideas.
That's where the hopeful comes in. Like,
Sorry, guys.
if we are giving them ideas, then maybe things will eventually get better like they do in the series.
Yes, this is our decision.
All I
Things
know
will
is
get better.
I want to
And
be a
things-
part of the wild cards. I just want to be on their crew. They sound awesome.
They are.
They are awesome. They were put together specifically to, and this is not too much of a spoiler, it comes out pretty early in book 1. They were put together specifically to test a different way to run a unit by the Democratic State Force, who are the folks fighting for democracy to return to America. But the Democratic State Force is a mix of people who study the army from 100 years ago and whoever ran away or got kicked out of their corporations and whoever ended up there, ragtags, waifs, and stories. But they try generally to run like the old American army, and that is a really bad plan because they live and die out there. They live their entire lives out there for the last 4 generations, and they're trying to run off of a system that was designed for soldiers who would, go on a deployment, maybe a couple, but they weren't living that life forever. So they were having really big problems with suicide rates, with friendly fire. Does anyone need an explanation of friendly fire? Okay, you know what friendly fire is. Yeah. So the administration said, we got to change this. And there was one commander, Commander Taylor, who said, okay, let me try putting a base together that runs like a family. And everyone said, no, that's not going to work. And he tried it. And
4 books later.
So it worked for 25 years under Taylor. And he created this multi-generational, really closely bonded unit that could get each other through all this stuff. They had no suicides. They had occasional people quit, but nobody killed themselves. They had no friendly fire. Everybody was amazed. And then Taylor died. And he was quite old. And he got bone cancer and he died. And the unit fell apart. The younger members started playing pranks on everyone. Like someone offended one of the girls on the base. So the logistics officer and the logistics specialist and the munitions specialist got together, got a hold of an inflatable sex toy sheep and put it on the other base and wrote on it, next time you're horny. Things like that. They started
like in chapter 1 and 2.
Yes, they started pranking everyone, and into this mess, 3 commanders tried to enter and fill Taylor's shoes, and they got pranked until they left, until they asked for transfer. So finally, the sector commander, and a sector is about the size of a state, an American state, said, okay, I choose this guy. He's a good fit. He's fresh out of training, and he's going to command the wildcards. And if he can't pull it off, then we're disbanding them, and they failed experiment. And this person is Aiden Headley, and his response was, "What? No, I'm not going into command." And he's a trans. Yeah,
We're not going to go too much further into that.
Okay.
I know you could, like, talk about that forever, and I don't want to spoil everything.
I'm glad you said that.
Good
but
job, Nonir. I was like, she's telling us everything.
Yeah, we are 4 books in, so we'll leave it at that.
I was about to get the popcorn because I'm like, this
Right?
is great.
Yeah.
It's like an audiobook, and I'm just like, yeah, cool.
I know. When I get nervous, I start talking faster.
That was all the backstory, so nothing's quite spoiled yet.
I love
Yeah,
the
so
premise.
book 1 starts with this poor young commander dropped in the middle of this group of craziness and absolute. Picture Mesh 4077 crossed with Minority Report, or our publisher says Firefly for the cyberpunk genre.
Oh,
okay. See,
those
that
are
we can get on
great
board with.
concepts. Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah, we like that. Yeah, we
But
like
more
Firefly.
queer. Yeah, it's very queer. Aiden's a trans guy. He falls in love with Kevin. I mean, I am going to spoil that. Oh no, there's gay romance. There's also gay explicit sex.
What?
Yeah.
You said this was middle grade fiction.
No. In fact, we have funny moments at conventions where we tell people, yeah, there's a trans guy leading the team, and supportive parents are awesome. There are awesome supportive parents out there who are like, oh, my kid is trans. I need to grab this book. And we're like, how old is your kid? How old is your kid?
We've also had some kids come up and look at the book, and we're like, you might want to wait a couple of years.
Yeah, kiddo, not yet. But the other thing
wait,
really
I have this book. I have these books. I do, don't I?
Yes, you do.
I haven't started them yet. I have them.
We know what
Yes.
Jason
So happy now.
Yes,
and
I also have Jane's books that I need to read too.
That's the problem of being friends with creative people. You're always behind on somebody's work. It is
Yes.
inevitable that you're always behind on somebody's work.
I'm still finishing Jason's book right now, so yeah.
It's an embarrassment of riches. It really is.
It took Katie like 5 years to stop sending me things to read for her because she realized it took me 3 months to read stuff.
Yeah, guilty. I'm particularly guilty because I took 3 months off in the winter, and I always say to everyone, "Oh yeah, I'll do that this winter." And then I look at the winter list and I go, oh.
Yeah,
Every time
yep.
Jane asks me to read something, I'm like, what's my deadline before I answer? Because I know that it might take me a little longer than expected.
Well, and that's what I've learned to say. I've been like, please give me a deadline. I mean, Nonir, I love the fact that you're writing shorter stuff because I can read it in like a day and have answers back to you. It's
Wait
my
till the last one.
yay!
I'm working on it's massive so far.
Oh, I can't wait.
Jason has my longest series.
Yeah, that it
And that's the
looks like
problem. I love everybody's work.
it looks like a
Generally,
6-year project actually.
Yeah. Pretty much, probably.
it's just finding the time. It really is. It's just finding the time.
Well, I don't think you wanted to read mine because I think mine was horror and you weren't into the horror.
And
But
I have a
did-
scary imagination.
I sent you a short story though that was not horror.
and
yes.
it is in my queue.
Yeah, so that one shouldn't be too scary. It's not scary at all.
But I wanted to circle back to a point. The series is also very queer in that we stress there are queer platonic relationships. Like there is a lesbian married to a bisexual girl on the base, and they are a long-term happy couple. They are goofy as anything. They are the BJ and Hawkeye of the team in terms of pranks.
I'm not sure
And
I understand that.
MASH.
It's a Mash Bros. 7 thing. They're the
Oh,
pranksters.
okay,
Makes a lot
okay.
of MASH references. I just kind of smile and nod.
Yeah, I
Oh
don't.
my-
I never watched that.
You
I
know
grew up with it.
That was a little before my time, I
That's
think.
right. You're a
It was
youngin.
way before my time. I'm 32, but I grew up on it.
I'm watching MASH, and I'm not much. Actually, I'm younger than you, Jason.
MASH is comfort food for
I
me.
watched it live.
What? Oh my gosh.
We bow, we bow, we bow.
I'm gonna go sit in
Oh, I am.
But anyway, the reason I bring it up is because Sarah and Yvonne, they go out of their way to grab their buddy Kevin, who's gay and a little bit shy about it, and they're like, "Hey, Kev, he's cute. He's cute. You want to date him? I'll find out if he's gay." And Kevin's just like, "I love you. Shut up. Shut up. Shut up."
No, near.
later in the series.
Do you ever bring Olivia to conventions with you to speak?
Yes.
Because I can see you being a phenomenal speaker on stage. I mean, you're so animated. I could just see you blowing people away with
She's
your
our
stories.
person. We normally share a table when we're vending at cons, and sometimes it'll be just wild cards. Sometimes it'll be my business and her business. Sometimes it'll be a mix of all three. But regardless, I'm normally the one who's just sitting and like, if you're interested, I will draw you over. And Liv's out there like,
Yeah.
come buy the things.
Yes, that's yes.
Well, I
oh,
will.
damn it, cat. Oh.
I'll be upfront about this.
Ow.
It's a front. I'm actually kind of an introvert, but I put on the extrovert persona like armor.
Oh.
And
This
then
is-
once I'm done with people, it falls off again.
This
And I
is
calm right down.
which, I mean, I will take advantage of. I'm sorry. I love you.
Well, I'm going to bounce it back on you, though. You're the one who keeps me literally from walking into walls at conventions because I get so focused on handling people that you're like, honey, that's a wall.
I'm the con parent.
Yes, you are the con parent.
Would-
And because I need a con parent, otherwise I forget to eat. And so for folks I don't know well, I have hyperinsulinemia, which means I produce twice as much adrenaline as the human body ought to,
Wow.
and double the insulin that a human
Wow.
body should. So my darling con parent also occasionally goes, "Your hands are shaking," and I look down and go, "Shit."
Yep.
Excuse the cursing, but yeah, that's exactly.
You're drinking water. You know your schedule, so you show up to your panels on time.
And not running. Yes, and we just got a comment that takes all the spoons. Yes, it does for both of us.
Well, and I do wanna take a second just to give a shout out to everyone who's commenting, because there's been a lot of commenters. We have Rebecca, we have Janet, who I haven't met before. We've got a few people I've met before. Mohammed, Jenna's on here, Robert Cano, Wajid, I believe, which is an amazing name. Julia. I mean, we've just got a ton of people on the feed. Thank you so much, everybody, for jumping on here and commenting. We really enjoy seeing the comments, even if they don't all get popped up. We love seeing them. Oh, this one's
Nice
great.
meeting you.
Someone just says another cat.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is Lance.
Yes.
And Jack made his appearance earlier. It was not pretty.
Was that the sound that we heard?
Yes. That
Oh.
was Jack saying, "You're not talking to me."
I was wondering what happened. I was like, is that one of the instruments? What is that?
No, that was Jack. That was Jack announcing himself, and he's going to be in trouble for that later. But on that note, I would like to piggyback off that to talk about writing what you know and passing on character traits to your book babies, because we took my wiring and put it into normal people, your favorite fans. That's great. So we took some of my traits and put them into our little coder, Tweak, who is what's called a gamma. She is genetically her grandparents were genetically modified in something like a Tuskegee experiment, where they said,
No.
"We'll pay you, and your kids will look great."
Oh, let's
And
not
they'll
bring up
drink half as
Tuskegee.
much
Oh, God.
Yeah, and have as much food as they need, but they didn't tell them this is totally experimental, and we're not sure what will happen to your kids.
Oh, Lord.
So she has bad genetic splicing in her germ line, which is the line that creates your kids for anybody who's watching.
Wait,
I told you she was a science nerd.
I know. You
Well,
don't tell us at all. I
So-
mean, tell us at all, but
Well, I'll just say this: Tweak literally bounces off walls, and we gave these traits to her of mine that
got your-
she can run herself right into the ground, quite literally. She will run until she passes out.
And your
So
touch
is-
sensitivity and your
Yep.
sense of hearing. And there's
Yeah,
way too much of me and Aiden.
So is that Olivia's nickname is Tweak?
It
No,
No.
I don't act like Tweak at all. Tweak is, you looking at me? You looking at me?
Tweak is more aggressive than you are, for sure.
Yeah. She's
so-
also less, she expects the worst of people for good reason. I expect the best of people, and then I'm sad when they don't meet it.
That's another way we balance really well, is that Liv tries really hard to be eternally optimistic, and I'm eternally pessimistic.
Yeah.
So eventually we
Love
come
it.
to realism together.
Yes.
Love it.
That's a
Love-
good partnership then.
Balance, like you were talking about, Katie. Well, and as long as we're talking about this subject, I think that we need to have a discussion about who is the best doctor in Doctor Who. Because, I mean, this seems really relevant to me right at this moment. And I'm just going to say, I'm going to take a hard stance and say Matt Smith is the best doctor. Go ahead and convince me otherwise.
Everybody live!
Are we talking,
He was great, but he only had one season.
are we talking modern Who or all of Who?
Oh,
Oh,
I'm talking modern Who only, because the old
Because
stuff
that'll
is
change the
old.
Yeah,
It's just too
Peter
old.
Baker. Peter Baker.
Yep.
Tenant,
He's such a
Tenant.
cute, sweet nerd.
Yeah,
What-
I
what-
think Tennant's mine.
Tenet?
Tennant's mine, although Eccleston runs him a close tie just for the sheer depth of emotion overlaid by I got a job to do, which I really feel in my bones that I feel this, but I don't have time to feel it right now, so I will push it down.
For
You
me,
know,
Tennant is the most relatable, but Tennant was so animated and fun.
Yes.
And he got a longer run time. You got more time to really get to know him, whereas Eccleston only got the one season. And one season doctors are never the true doctor. It always takes another season for you to really see them.
Yeah,
Yes,
and
'Cause you
Tennant,
gotta fall in love with them.
well, and what I loved about Tennant was all of that joy and exuberance, and people thought he was
Stop it, Katie.
nice strategy.
I think that's one of the reasons I like Jodie Whittaker so much, is she reminds me a lot of Tennant.
Yes,
Oh.
A lot
Friends
of the same physicality and the same excitement, but also like weariness about life.
well, and what really gets it for me is it was something that I appreciated. Was people think that if you're cheerful and upbeat, then you're fluffy and you're an airhead. They assume that you are senseless because you are cheerful. What I love about Tennant is that he liked to be in a state of exuberance and joy because he felt better there. But you piss him off and he is the oncoming storm and you are toast.
You
And I
know,
loved watching him go from exuberant to uh-oh to, oh, now I'm dealing with you.
this is my
and
fighting
watching-
hand.
Yeah. Well, and just watching him go, and now I'm the oncoming storm.
When he started explaining who he was, you knew you were in trouble.
Yes. So back in college, when I didn't have enough brain power to write full work, but I still loved writing, I was writing fanfic. And I wrote a scene where somebody was demanding his name, and he's like, "You want my name? Okay then." And he gave like all his names. I had
That's
so
so
much fun writing.
Odin.
Yes. Well, okay. So Nodir, who here knows a little bit of folklore?
Okay, well, I'm a Norse mythology nerd, and
Oh, wow.
in the myth, in the Eddas, Odin has, I want to say, over 100 recorded names.
Yep.
So like that scene just makes me think of Odin. Sorry.
I based it off the Celtic power of the name, and so this creature is trying to like get control of him. and he basically beats it by confusing it, by giving it so many names that it can't figure out what the hell is going on, because it's trying for his true name. It's trying for power over him, and he's just like, you want names? I got names. And basically confused this fairy thing until it was just like, nope, out.
So are there magical things happening in your book too then? Magical creatures and stuff?
Not in this one.
Not in this one exactly, although there is a hint of magic in book 4, and that's all I'm telling you.
Oh, all right.
It's more of
Remember
a,
that magic is anything science can't explain.
That's
Right.
exactly right.
it's more of a based in real world pagan magic than a
okay.
Yeah,
father type magic.
I
Yeah.
bet if we're
the magic of changing your own soul through
Okay.
ceremony, the magic of changing your own soul by choice is a big part of book 4.
I was just
and-
going to say, if we were quiet for a couple seconds, Liv will tell us exactly what it is.
I know, I gotta shut up.
No need to read, just watch this.
No, read, because we need to make book sales.
Please keep reading, please.
Oh, that's cracking me up.
Speaking
Um,
of reading,
That's a
has
real
anybody
thing.
noticed an uptick on sales due to all the quarantining?
I don't have any idea because I'm with a publisher now, and so like I don't have any idea what's happening.
I have one short story out under my, or 2 short stories out under my own name. I haven't marketed them at all, so no one knows they're there.
I have, so I do illustrated books on ethnobotany and folklore under my own name, and those have definitely upticked a bit. I think people are looking for like cheerful, happy things about flowers and plants right now, and they're just looking for pictures. Hey, somebody else is an 80s fan. I just saw that song reference. Yay, other 80s fans. So
that would be Rebecca. She is actually my publisher for my new
Yeah.
book, and
nice.
a good friend of the show. Rebecca's fantastic.
I promise I won't try to sing it because Nonir is a much better singer than I am.
No. Come on, come on.
Singing.
I will not sing.
Is it that every little thing you
Scare the audience.
every little thing you do is magic? Is that the song we're talking about?
Yes.
All right, come on. All right, somebody start it off, and I'll join in.
Mhm.
Not happening.
I have a voice for folk songs. I do not have a voice for actual rock songs, and when I try to sing them in the shower, it ends badly. It usually ends with a cat howling outside the bathroom door.
Yeah, the cat howls at you like all the time anyway.
That's true.
Cat thinks it's a cater wall. And
Yeah.
oh, good stuff. So what
Yeah,
were we talking? We were talking about.
And when we were talking Tenet, and I was going to bring up Good Omens.
Oh my
Yes.
God, I love Good Omens. Oh, thank you, Katie, for telling me to watch that. Oh, just
Best
the
thing
freaking
ever.
best.
I was so scared because I am a huge Pratchett fan, and I've seen the other movie adaptations. Ugh. So I was not looking. I was
What are you
very
talking
nervous.
about?
Sheen and David Tennant together. How could they go wrong?
Yeah.
Did you all see the quarantine video they just put out? Like
Not
yesterday?
yet.
No, I need to find this.
I think my roommate said it was on Sir Terry's YouTube channel, and it was the two of them as Aziraphale and Crowley, what they were doing during all of this.
We're watching that tonight. Yes.
I mean, it's short. It's like 10, 15 minutes, but
How do you spell Aziraphale?
Ziraphale.
I was going to answer with difficulty.
It's one of my favorite books ever. Like
See, my problem is I listen to almost everything in audio. So people ask me, how do you spell that? And I'm like, I don't know. I've never seen it written down.
Yeah, Nonir, you rattled that off like it was nothing, and that was a
yeah, I
hard
have a
one.
problem.
Wow. Oh yeah, Good Omens lockdown.
Yep.
All
I'll
right.
be watching that as soon as we're done.
Is the show over, guys? Are we still going or?
Wow, look at him. He's like, and we're done.
There's new Good Omens material, guys. Come on.
Bye-bye.
Lots of Good Omens material if you go on 3.
True.
And there's your squirrel moment.
Yes. Oh, goodness. Hey, this has been fun. Look at it's been like 50 minutes already.
Wow.
Yeah.
Olivia
Wow.
talked most of it. I love
Well,
you.
she's really good at talking, okay?
She's really good at explaining the book. So
Hey, I haven't seen anybody but my husband and my cat and my coworker
I love
for
you, but I'm still going to
weeks.
tease you.
Olivia, could you please explain to us the entire book, Good Omens?
Abusing Christian mythology with the best results. That pretty much sums it up.
I like that.
I love it. That was fantastic.
that was really good.
Boy, could you help me come up with catchphrases for my books? Because that was bam.
It's one of my jobs in our team is to come up with the catchphrases and the titles.
That's cool.
Because
Because
I love you dearly. Yeah, I love you dearly, but you titled the book I'm working on right now, They Find Janice a Man. That was the title.
That's
Yes,
great. I love that
look at the
title.
draft one. You titled it Aiden and Kevin Find Janice a Man.
I mean, that's how I name most of my files, and then I come up with a title eventually.
That's like a sitcom title.
We were goofing around the other day and we actually came up with a great title between us of a short story. It's going to be called Bottom Dealing, and it's going to be one of the smutty ones, and I can't wait. Yeah, so what we do is in between each novel, we put a short story and we mark them 0.5. So we do 1.5, 2.5, 3.5. And it's a chance to just sit with our characters when they're not getting shot at or in huge danger. Sometimes it's romantic, sometimes it's just world building, community building, culture building. And the last one we did, which is going to come out in October for Halloween, is it's called Bad Hand, and it's about Day of the Dead celebrations among these people who regularly lose friends and family and have to deal with that. And it's also in a world where all of northern Mexico and a lot of southern USA has become one giant desert called the Mex Desert, because it's just unbelievably, unbearably Death Valley hot. You can't live there. You can't. So that whole area has just become a desert. And at one point, somebody's talking about the history. We have one character who's just, he's a huge history buff, which he gets teased for, but it's a great access character because it lets us deal with all that.
How much longer should I just let her go? Before
I don't know if you could see me looking down at you, and I'm just like, this is great. She'll keep going.
Yes.
You gotta get the play her off music.
We're not to get people wicked interested, and we're just quietly listening because it's interesting. So that's a really
I appreciate that. I do get off onto a spiel. I'll admit that freely.
That's okay.
Olivia, I love it. I love it. When people ask me to tell me about my book, I'll give like this half-hearted half sentence, and I'm like, oh, it horror, blood.
Well, it comes from coming from a huge family. Unless you talk fast and loud, you don't get heard. So you learn to talk very fast and very loud.
And I'm the opposite.
No.
Yeah.
I'm quiet and I wait for my turn. But as far as like describing books goes, I've spent so much time in the traditional publishing arena trying to get an agent and whatnot that I have my log line. That is how I describe the books. I have a sentence, maybe two. And that works for publishing, not so much for trying to sell at cons. That's when we need Olivia. So that's why I just let her run with it. Like, you can do the talking thing. I'll do the backup and talking about queer stuff thing.
Yeah. No,
It
you
works
guys have
out.
a great team. You really do.
Thanks.
We put together things we're really, really proud of. I will say that we've
It
put
helps.
together some stuff. Huh?
It helps that we're both passionate about the project.
Yeah.
True.
Well,
And we're also
Olivia doesn't sound very excited about it.
We're also very passionate about helping our community. So I'm going to do a bit of a shameless plug.
Do it.
That's what this entire show is, right?
There is that. So in the back of each book, we wanted to make sure we weren't just saying, hey, buy our stuff. It has queer representation. Because there is something of a fetishizing that goes on sometimes in the writing community that's not pretty. So in the back of each of our books, there's a bunch of resources for folks who are going through the issues that show up in the book. There. So there's a whole list of resources for
all of the books deal with a lot of heavy mental health issues and queer issues, and we didn't want to just throw those at the reader and let them deal with it on their own, especially since we know that some of it could potentially be triggering for certain people.
Yeah.
So we wanted to provide, hey, if you're struggling with this, like this character is, here are some resources that you can find right here, right now.
Yeah, so the first few resources are crisis text line, Trevor Lifeline, places you can reach out to that moment, because we want people, especially if they're in a fragile place, the minute they put the book, or the minute they turn the last page, it's a note from one of the characters from the story saying, hey, you know, I'm going through this stuff. Are you going through it? Here are some resources. And then the list gets progressively more rich in resource. So it's not just call the crisis line, but here's this help group. Here's this bigger website of resources.
Is this specific to your region, or is it meant to be nationwide, these resources?
International as much as we.
Is that something that you could send me? Because I think I told you before, and I never followed up with you. I'd like to include that right on the Unafraid Podcasts page.
Sure.
So that there are resources up there for people.
Sure, we'd be happy to. I can take care of it, Nonier, probably tonight. I'll have to make sure that all of them are applicable, but I think everything we've got. Do you want the ones for veterans? Because all of our characters are in a war, so we put in stuff for vets too.
Yeah, sure. Send over whatever you have, if you don't mind terribly.
Yeah, of course. No
Awesome.
problem. We'd be glad to.
Well,
yeah,
you guys have... go ahead, Nonier.
Resources as well is that we both struggle with our own mental issues that have also been put into characters in the book. But we've both kind of run up to that thing of people saying, well, if you're struggling, get help, and not knowing where to start even looking.
And it almost becomes a form of dismissal, like, go get help. It's like saying, go sit down.
Well, and I think that's sometimes... okay, because when I was going through my own mental health crisis a couple years ago, and several of my children are too, unfortunately, but I had a couple family members that said, don't be depressed. You have so much to be happy about, and obviously that's not realistic for someone with a mental illness. However,
have you tried not having a broken leg?
That's right. But but at the same time, I recognize that it's also a way of trying to deal with a situation that they don't understand.
Mm-hmm.
So they're saying just the first thing that pops into their head, and I think that it's really important that and wonderful that you guys are providing people with resources that could really help, coming from people that have struggled with their own issues.
Yeah,
you know how important that is.
Exactly.
Rawr.
Come on, Nonier, you got this.
Yeah, you got it.
Mental health stuff is what I'm really passionate about, and there's this misconception around depression in particular, which I struggle with and Aiden struggles with in the book, that it's completely tied to your circumstances and you can shake it off and it's just being sad. And it's so much more complicated than that, because by all standards, I have an extremely privileged life and I'm not going to deny that. But my brain chemistry still thinks that I'm the worst. And it can be very, very subtle. And I think that portraying that in a more realistic way in fiction is a good way to start a conversation as well, and to start getting that awareness out that it's not just, I'm going to sit in my room all night with the lights off, huddled in the blanket crying, and going to have these tendencies that are like the very stereotypical depressed.
Well, you
Yeah.
know, Nonir, I would really love to have a longer conversation with you about writing for mental illnesses, because there's the problem with realistic depression. I think that it's not very sexy for genre fiction. It doesn't have a whole lot of pop and bang to it, and so I don't think it attracts the eye as much, and people are frightened to read it, which is why yeah, I mean, in my current work in progress, you have a very, very depressed person, but I added in a supernatural thing that added to it, because I just didn't think people would be able to relate to it, even though I can relate to it. So, but I think there are so many things that oh, go ahead.
A lot more
Thanks,
people struggle with this than you think.
Yeah?
And a lot of people aren't aware of it and don't know to seek help because it's not as dramatic.
Represented? Okay.
Agreed.
So
Okay. I like that. Okay.
overdone.
I mean,
And I
I
wanted-
don't like that, but that makes sense to me.
Yeah.
That works in my
I think
brain.
a lot more people can relate to it than you think.
Okay.
And I wanted to add that note. It doesn't have to be sexy, but it is relatable. And sometimes it makes a more powerful character because when we're writing Aiden and when Nonia wrote Aiden in draft 1, he was the character who would walk up to somebody who was going through some shit and he wouldn't say, "Oh, buck up." And he wouldn't say, you'll be fine, you'll be fine. He would say, "This really sucks, doesn't it?" And the person who was he was more empathetic because of it. And he was the one who would get somebody through it because he would actually say, "Yeah, I know it sucks."
Which again is a part of me that made it into him. Whoops.
But it's also what makes you such an awesome person, because you're one of the few people can be honest with when they're like, "I don't want to
You're fine.
suck." Yeah. And so, but it is a power. I mean, yes, it's debilitating sometimes, but there's power in it, that it gives you more insight and more attention to other people's emotional states and more empathy, because you've been in the dark and you know how to light a candle, or at least some days. And some days you know you're just going to be in the dark and it just sucks, and you don't try to fix other people.
I often joke with people that my superpowers are depression and overeating. Yeah.
That is such a mood.
Yes.
Yes. Well, all right, guys. I really feel like that I could talk to the two of you for a really long time. I really enjoy talking to you guys. I mean, Katie and Jane, I love you guys anyway.
Yeah.
But, I've moved on now. Now I've.
Yeah. I feel bad that you guys didn't get to say very much. I'm sorry about that.
That's okay. You're our guests. That's right.
But we are at the we're actually a little bit over our hour now, so we're gonna wrap things up and say goodbye. And I just want to thank you both for coming on the show. It was really great to have you.
Yeah, thank you for having
Thank
us.
you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks a lot. It was a lot of fun.
Awesome. And to everyone who is watching, listening, commenting, thank you so much for being here. Like it, share it, do whatever you got to do. Show us you love it, and we'll see you next week. Bye, guys.
Bye.